Have you ever wandered through the bright, cluttered aisles of Dollar Tree and thought, nothing here could possibly help my garden? It's a familiar feeling. After all, the shelves brim with seasonal decorations, party supplies, and kitchen odds and ends, not exactly what most gardeners picture when they think of protection against frost or ways to extend a harvest. Yet, dear friend, October can be an unforgiving month. The mornings grow colder, the soil shifts under sudden rains, and one snap of frost can undo weeks, even months of tender care. But here's the surprise: hidden among those budget shelves are tools that not only shield your plants, but also bring unexpected peace of mind. I remember the first time I realized this. I was walking down an aisle crowded with storage bins and holiday baking pans, when it struck me, what if these everyday items held secret lives in the garden? That simple thought became a doorway into a whole new way of seeing. Suddenly, I wasn't just looking at plastic containers or foil trays. I was imagining greenhouses, frost shields, compost helpers, and gentle watering tools, all at prices that didn't make my heart ache. The discovery wasn't about saving money alone. It was about seeing possibility in the ordinary. October, as every gardener knows, is a threshold month. It's the time when summer's energy fades, but hope still lingers in every leaf and root. With the right protection, you can carry that hope forward, even when the air turns sharp. The best part, you don't need to spend a fortune or chase after specialty equipment. With a little imagination, Dollar Tree becomes less of a discount store and more of a hidden garden supplier. Over the next few minutes, I'll share 10 simple treasures from those shelves items that can transform your garden this October and remind you that creativity, not cost, is what keeps beauty alive. On a chilly October evening not long ago, I found myself staring at the weather forecast in disbelief. A sudden frost warning had appeared, the kind of early cold snap that sneaks in before you feel ready. I thought of my tender basil, my last few tomatoes clinging to their vines, and my pots of herbs I'd hoped to enjoy a little longer. My heart sank. I had no frost cloth, no garden domes, and no time to run to the nursery. But then my eyes fell on something stacked in the corner of the garage, a pile of clear plastic storage containers I'd bought for holiday decorations. In that moment, a spark of imagination lit up. Couldn't these become makeshift greenhouses? I rushed outside, flipped the bins upside down, and gently placed them over my plants like protective domes. By morning, while neighbors walked sadly through their frost-burned gardens, mine stood untouched, basking under a soft glow created by those ordinary containers. What amazed me even more was not just that the plants survived, they thrived. The containers held warmth, shielded the leaves from wind, and let the light pour through like miniature sunrooms. Suddenly, what I once saw as storage became salvation. The beauty of this trick lies in its simplicity. Clear bins are light enough to handle without strain, even for tired hands or backs. You can lift them with ease, set them in place, and remove them when the day warms. For seniors especially, who may no longer haul heavy garden cloches or bend for elaborate setups, these containers bring back independence. They work for seed starting in spring, protecting seedlings during cool nights, and even creating warm microclimates in the fall for crops like spinach or lettuce. There's also a lesson tucked in here. Gardens often teach us that survival depends not on having the fanciest tools, but on seeing potential where others see clutter. A bin meant for storing sweaters or ornaments can extend the life of a plant that feeds or comforts you. Isn't that a bit like life itself? With the right perspective, ordinary things become extraordinary. Still useful, still strong, just like us. When most people see an aluminum roasting pan at Dollar Tree, they imagine a Thanksgiving turkey or a tray of cookies cooling on the counter. I used to pass by them the same way, never thinking twice. That changed one fall afternoon when I visited a dear gardening friend. She was dividing her daylilies, her hostas, and even her hardy mums. And instead of juggling muddy roots and clumps of soil, she had a row of shiny pans spread across the lawn. Each one held a different plant division, neat and organized, waiting to be replanted or gifted. The scene struck me. It looked more like an artist's palette than a messy autumn chore. That simple moment taught me how these lightweight pans can transform fall tasks. Have you ever struggled to carry wet clumps of roots, making multiple trips across the yard? Or found yourself dropping soil on the porch floor as you tried to separate bulbs with your hands full? An aluminum pan becomes your portable garden station, saving step strain and frustration. For those of us who don't move quite as quickly as we once did, that matters. You can kneel once, fill the pan, and carry it gently where it needs to go instead of bending and lifting repeatedly. And the uses go far beyond plant division. Add a few holes in the bottom and suddenly you have oversized seed starting trays that cost pennies compared to what garden centers charge. Use one to soak bulbs overnight before planting, giving them a healthy start. Place a pan under your compost tea jar and you have a spill-proof brewing station. Even soil mixing becomes simple when you can blend potting soil and amendments in a contained tray instead of scattering half of it on the ground. There's something comforting about turning a holiday baking tool into a gardening ally. It reminds us that order and beauty don't have to cost much, they come from resourcefulness. As the garden winds down in October, tools like these help reduce stress and give us back a little energy. And isn't that what we're always seeking as we age, to keep creating without exhausting ourselves, to find balance between effort and joy? If you've ever unwrapped one of those thin, shiny emergency blankets from a camping kit, you know how insubstantial they feel, almost like crinkled foil. At first glance, it seems laughable to think such a flimsy thing could protect tender plants from October's bite. But last fall, I saw with my own eyes how powerful they can be. My neighbor had splurged on expensive frost cloths, spending well over $200 to shield her garden beds. Meanwhile, I had only a handful of emergency blankets from Dollar Tree. When the first hard frost came, the comparison was almost unbelievable. Her plants wilted at the edges while mine stood tall, wrapped in silver sheets that shimmered in the morning sun. The secret lies in what those blankets do with heat. They don't just cover your plants. They reflect warmth back down, almost like tucking your garden into a heated quilt. On chilly nights, that makes the difference between losing a crop and savoring it for weeks longer. Last year, I kept my tomato vines going nearly 6 weeks past the usual cutoff, simply by draping those reflective blankets around the cages. While most folks were frying green tomatoes, I was still picking ripe red fruit for my salads. And the benefits don't stop at frost protection. These blankets can be clipped to simple stakes to form reflective walls, bouncing light onto shaded plants to help them ripen faster. They can warm soil before you sow cover crops, giving seeds a head start. They're light enough to handle without effort and easy to fold away when not in use, making them especially friendly for gardeners who may not want to wrestle with bulky row covers. There's a deeper lesson here too. Sometimes what seems flimsy or disposable turns out to be quietly powerful. We learn with age that strength isn't always loud or heavy. It can be light, adaptable, and humble. The same way these little blankets hold warmth, our gardens and our lives are held together by small acts of care that ripple outward. And in the glow of those silver sheets, there's proof that ingenuity often outshines expense. When I was younger, I wore dirt-stained hands like a badge of honor. After all, wasn't gardening supposed to be messy? I believed real gardeners dug with bare fingers, proving toughness with scratches and soil under the nails. That belief lasted until one October when I planted over 100 tulip bulbs in heavy clay soil. By the time I finished, my palms were raw, my nails cracked, and I could hardly hold a teacup the next morning. For nearly a week, I couldn't return to the garden I loved. It wasn't stubborn pride that kept me away. It was pain. That's when I finally admitted that protecting my hands didn't mean weakness, it meant wisdom. Rubber gloves from Dollar Tree may not look like much, but they are quiet champions. They slip on easily, they're affordable enough to keep multiple pairs, and they turn grueling chores into manageable ones. Imagine pruning roses without the sting of thorns, harvesting root vegetables without dark stains lingering under your nails, or handling compost without worrying about cuts or contamination. For older gardeners, this simple barrier saves skin from unnecessary wear and keeps hands steady for the next project. A textured grip also makes tools easier to hold, especially on damp mornings when handles can slip. I think often about how our bodies, like our gardens, deserve care. We wouldn't let delicate seedlings stand unprotected in a storm. Why do we sometimes treat our own hands with less respect? These gloves remind me that self-care and productivity are not opposites, they go hand in hand, literally. And when you can finish a long day of planting and still sit down to supper without wincing at sore fingertips, that's not just comfort, it's a gift. So the next time you walk past a pack of rubber gloves in the Dollar Tree aisle, think of them not as ordinary household supplies, but as faithful companions. They allow us to continue creating beauty season after season without sacrificing the very hands that bring it into being. Because gardening is not about proving toughness, it's about lasting long enough to keep enjoying the work we love. It was just 2 autumns ago when the skies opened for 3 straight days, pounding my garden with heavy rain. My newly planted lettuce seedlings looked like they'd been through a battle, their fragile leaves flattened into the mud. Then, just as the ground began to dry, a sharp wind swept through, leaving me certain I'd lose everything I had just sown. That's when I remembered an old roll of plastic drop cloths tucked away from a painting project. Out I went, scissors in hand, cutting sheets and draping them over simple stakes. By the next morning, it felt like a small miracle. While neighboring gardens were waterlogged, mine looked as though someone had shielded them with invisible walls. Drop cloths may seem plain, even boring, but in the garden they become quiet lifesavers. They can serve as instant greenhouse walls when draped over hoops, holding warmth and moisture without the weight of glass or heavy panels. They're perfect for preventing soil erosion during October's unpredictable rains, keeping seeds from washing away. Spread flat, they create a clean workspace for potting plants indoors or sorting bulbs on the porch. In fall cleanup, they double as leaf collectors, pile everything on, drag it across the yard, and save your back from endless trips with a rake and bin. For seniors, this versatility matters. The cloths are light enough to carry without strain, large enough to cover a raised bed in minutes, and inexpensive enough to replace as needed. And because they fold up small, you don't need a garage full of bulky equipment to be prepared. A few sheets tucked away can mean the difference between losing tender fall crops and carrying them proudly into November. But perhaps what I appreciate most is what this reminds me about gardening and about life. Protection doesn't always require complexity. Sometimes it's the simplest layer stretched gently over what you cherish that keeps it safe. Just as a drop cloth shields seedlings from storms, so too can small acts of care shield our spirits in difficult seasons. Ordinary, humble, and easy to overlook. Yet when the rain falls hardest, these sheets prove their worth. If you've ever tried to apply rooting hormone with your fingers or a messy paintbrush, you know the frustration. Half the powder falls away, and the other half clumps where it shouldn't. That was my experience the first time I attempted propagating cuttings from a favorite rose bush. I ended up wasting more than I used, and only a few of my cuttings survived. Later, a horticulturist friend laughed kindly and handed me a foam brush from her craft drawer. "Try this," she said. I was skeptical. How could something so small, meant for painting crafts, change the outcome? But it did. With a soft foam tip, I could apply a thin, even layer exactly where it belonged. The difference between failure and success sometimes rests in details as tiny as this. Foam brushes from Dollar Tree may not stand out on the shelf, but they bring a level of precision most gardeners overlook. For delicate tasks, they are gentle, clean, and disposable. You can use them to apply rooting hormone with surgical accuracy, paint tree trunks with whitewash to prevent sun scald, or dab a natural pesticide exactly where pests appear without wasting product. They're also wonderful for cleaning dust from fragile seedlings or leaves, offering a light touch where a cloth would be too rough. And let's be honest, part of what makes gardening harder as we age is the energy it takes to redo mistakes. Wasting materials, making messes, or harming plants by accident can feel discouraging. Tools like these help prevent those frustrations, allowing us to accomplish more with less strain and less waste. For seniors, that's not just convenience, it's dignity. It means being able to keep experimenting with new plants and techniques without worrying about the what-ifs. There's also a tender reminder in this. Just as these brushes make small, precise strokes, our lives are shaped not only by bold decisions, but by careful, thoughtful touches. Sometimes it's the quiet adjustments, the gentle choices that carry us forward. A foam brush may be simple, but in its lightness and control, it teaches us something valuable, that delicacy too can be a form of strength. Not long ago, I stood in a garden center staring at rows of pricey seedling protectors, small domes meant to guard tender plants as they transitioned outdoors. Each one cost nearly $10, and I calculated how quickly the price would add up for all the little seedlings I had waiting at home. My heart sank, knowing my budget couldn't stretch that far. Later that week, while unpacking groceries, I held a stack of clear plastic cups from Dollar Tree, and it clicked. What if these cups became tiny greenhouses? The first time I tried it, I slipped a cup over a vulnerable seedling, poked a few small holes in the top for ventilation, and pressed the rim gently into the soil. To my delight, the plant thrived, safe from wind-curious birds and sudden chills. The cup created its own miniature climate, warm and humid, like a protective hug for that fragile green life. Soon, my garden rows looked dotted with little transparent domes, and I couldn't help but smile at how simple it was. These cups may be designed for parties, but in the garden they work wonders. You can use them to shield seedlings during those first delicate days outdoors, to create rooting stations for cuttings, or to germinate seeds with perfect visibility. For those of us with aching knees or tired hands, their lightweight design makes them easy to place and remove without heavy lifting. And because they cost so little, you can protect dozens of plants for the price of just one commercial dome. But beyond practicality, there's something tender about this trick. Watching those little seedlings inside their cups feels almost like watching over children under umbrellas in a sudden rain. It's a reminder that even the smallest lives, whether plant or person, thrive when cared for with gentleness. Gardening often mirrors life, the smallest protections. The simplest shields can help fragile beginnings grow strong. And just like those seedlings, we too flourish best when sheltered with care, patience, and a little creativity. It's funny how often the smallest frustrations in the garden end up making the biggest difference. I remember one autumn kneeling by a tray of freshly planted bulbs, struggling to remember which section held tulips and which held daffodils. I had scribbled notes on scraps of paper, but the wind carried them off like playful birds. The next spring, when shoots emerged, I found myself guessing at what I had planted. That was when I first reached for a pack of simple wooden craft sticks. $1 for a bundle of 100. Suddenly, I had all the markers I needed. With a quick pencil note pressed into the wood, my bulbs were no longer a mystery. Since then, I've discovered dozens of ways these humble sticks serve the garden. They become tiny stakes to support seedlings too fragile for larger rods. They act as measuring tools when spacing plants, or as neat applicators for fertilizer in small pots. For cuttings, they can prop up leaves at just the right angle, ensuring the stem doesn't sag. And the best part, they're biodegradable. Unlike plastic markers that crack and rusted wire tags that cut into stems, wooden sticks simply return to the soil when their work is done, leaving nothing harmful behind. For older gardeners especially, their convenience is a blessing. You don't need strength to carry them, nor precision tools to use them. Just tuck a few into your pocket, and you'll always have help close at hand. Their lightness and abundance mean you can be generous using them freely without worry of cost or waste. But there's also a lesson here hidden in their quiet usefulness. Just as small sticks keep seedlings steady, small acts of care keep our days steady. Sometimes it isn't the grand gestures or expensive tools that carry us through, it's the little supports we place along the way, unseen yet essential. In the end, gardening, like life, depends on countless small helpers that guide growth. Wooden craft sticks may look insignificant on the shelf, but in the garden they remind us of the quiet power of simplicity. I still remember the first time I lost a tray of seedlings to heavy-handed watering. I had carefully nurtured them for weeks, tiny sprouts reaching for the light only to drown half of them in seconds with a full-sized watering can. The soil splashed, the stems bent flat, and my heart ached at the sight. It wasn't lack of care, it was lack of the right tool. A few days later, while browsing through Dollar Tree, I noticed rows of simple spray bottles. I bought a few, and that small choice changed everything about how I care for tender plants. Spray bottles seem ordinary, but in the garden they act like precision instruments. A gentle mist can water seedlings without disturbing the soil, providing moisture exactly where it's needed. Filled with diluted fertilizer, they become tools for foliar feeding, giving late-season plants the extra boost they crave. Labeled clearly, they can hold organic pest solutions, allowing you to target aphids or mites without soaking the entire plant. Indoors, they help control humidity for houseplants transitioning back from the porch in October. One bottle, so many possibilities, all for a fraction of what specialty sprayers cost. For those of us whose hands may not be as strong as they once were, spray bottles are light, easy to grip, and simple to refill. There's no need to lift a heavy watering can or risk spilling. You can keep several by your side, one with plain water, one with compost tea, another with insecticidal soap. The trick is never to mix chemicals in the same bottle, but when you have multiples, organization becomes part of the joy. And there's something quietly symbolic about misting. The soft spray is not forceful but nourishing. It reminds me that gentleness, whether in gardening or in life, often produces the best results. Heavy hands can flatten what is fragile. Light, careful touches encourage growth. In a way, spray bottles teach us to slow down, to treat new life tenderly, and to remember that care isn't always about how much we give, but how gently we give it. October is often a month of goodbyes in the garden. You watch green tomatoes hanging stubbornly on the vine, knowing a single frost will turn them to mush overnight. That was my exact predicament last year, 30 pounds of tomatoes still unripe and a frost warning looming. I considered pulling them off for fried green tomato recipes, but my heart wasn't ready to surrender the season. Then I remembered the reflective emergency blankets I had picked up for camping. Out I went, wrapping tomato cages in the thin silver sheets, securing them with clips so they formed shining cocoons. To my amazement, those plants didn't just survive the frost, they kept producing ripe red tomatoes for 6 more weeks. What makes these blankets so effective is their ability to do more than cover. The shiny surface reflects light back onto plants, giving them extra daylight to ripen fruit faster. At the same time, the material traps heat, creating a warm microclimate that mimics summer conditions long after the calendar says fall. While neighbors were clearing their gardens, I was still carrying in bowls of fresh tomatoes, grateful for the gift of time these simple sheets had given me. Their usefulness extends beyond tomatoes. Wrap them around raised beds, drape them over hoops, or use them to pre-warm soil before planting cool weather crops. Because they are lightweight, they're easy for older gardeners to handle without strain, and they fold up small enough to store in a drawer until needed. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can safeguard plants worth far more in effort and joy. And isn't there a beautiful metaphor here? Sometimes, what feels like the end is really just an invitation to stretch a little longer, to keep going when we think it's time to stop. These blankets, so thin they seem almost disposable, carry the power to extend life, to preserve harvest, to create more days of beauty. They remind us that resilience often comes in unlikely forms, and that with a bit of imagination, even October can feel like summer again. As we step back and look at these 10 humble Dollar Tree items, what strikes me most is not their price tag, but the lesson they carry. Gardening has never been about who spends the most money or who owns the fanciest tools. It has always been about vision, patience, and the ability to see possibility where others see only clutter. A storage bin becomes a greenhouse. A foil pan turns into a workstation. A shiny blanket saves a harvest. Each of these transformations whispers the same truth. Beauty often hides in plain sight, waiting for us to notice. Over the years, I've found that these small discoveries don't just change my garden, they change me. They remind me that resilience is not about force, but about resourcefulness. That our hands, though perhaps slower or more delicate than they once were, can still create wonders when guided by imagination. That aging doesn't mean losing our touch. It means learning to work with gentler tools, smarter methods, and deeper wisdom. I think about the many gardens I visited, from sprawling backyards to balcony pots. Some are overflowing with store-bought gadgets, others patched together with thrifted finds. Do you know what they all share in common? The same spark of life in the soil. The same joy on a gardener's face when something blooms against the odds. That joy is never measured by cost, it's measured by care. So, dear friend, if you take just one thing from this, let it be this. Your garden doesn't need to be perfect or expensive to be meaningful. You already have what you need: the imagination to see a second life in ordinary objects, the patience to nurture growth, and the hands to shape beauty in small spaces. Perhaps this week you'll wander those Dollar Tree aisles and see not just shelves of goods, but possibilities waiting for your touch. And when you do, I hope you'll feel the same quiet thrill I do, that with creativity and kindness, even the simplest things can help life flourish. Until next time, keep growing, keep creating, and remember, the finest gardens are born from gardeners who see possibility everywhere.